Welcome to Worthy the Podcast, where we have conversations about what it means to feel worthy and what happens when we don't. I'm your host, Jessica Raimondi. Okay, guys, welcome back to Worthy. Today I am sitting down with Dr. Jasmine Escalera. She is a local here in Miami. She's a generational pattern expert and spiritual neuroscientist. Mm-hmm. Woo, woo, woo. Welcome to Worthy, Jasmine.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Here. I know, me too. So we have a mutual friend.
Yes.
Danielle Dam. She was also on the podcast. She did an amazing, she was like one of my first guests.
That's amazing. I love that so much.
We had so much fun.
I bet you did. She was a hell of a lot of fun.
She's so fun. She's so easy to talk to, but she was like, dude, you have to get Dr. Jasmine.
You said it in exactly the way I imagined.
Yeah, exactly. I sounded just like her.
I love that.
Dude, you got to have Dr. Jasmine. And I was like, all right, send her my way, So we're just connecting. And I'm so happy you're here. So, okay, what the heck is a generational pattern expert?
I love that you asked that. So generational pattern expert means that I really investigate inherited patterns that particularly women of color are pursuing in their lives that are counterproductive to the life that they truly want to have. Either the life, the love, how they want to lead, how they want to show up in the world. So inherited patterns are patterns that we inherit either through modeling or conditioning. There's even some biology factors there.
I was going to say, yeah.
So there's a whole field of epigenetics coming out now that says that we inherit things from up to 7 generations before us. And many of these patterns can be very helpful. I've worked with many women who really from these generational patterns have inherited strength and resilience. But many of these patterns can be counterproductive.
Right. I can't even believe some of them can be helpful. That's actually such an interesting way to put it. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like how, the helpful ones? Because
absolutely.
I would just think like we're picking up the negative ones or the stress or the trauma, right?
Yeah. And when I think about generational healing and when I talk about generational healing, I love to talk about the duality of it. That there is the component of what we receive from our ancestors, that is the strength, the resilience, the determination, the things that bring us to who we are today. But not everything that brings us to who we are today is in service of us for where we want to go. So for example, strength definitely got me through my life. It got me through all of the different things that I've gone through. But in relationships, it wasn't serving me to be the strong, dominant one. So many of these inherited patterns do have that duality effect where we can honor them for where they have taken us, but many of them really, truly need to be released in order to have the life we want moving forward.
Wow. That's amazing. It's something to think about. And when you said that too, I was like, oh, I'm the strong dominant one. I was like, we'll get to that because I took the quiz too. And so funny. Well, okay, great. And then yes, like, and same thing, like now what does it say? You said it's starting to learn a little bit about biology. We're starting to, or epigenetics in that factor. Like, so if my mom was like in stress or anxiety quite a lot. And when I was in the womb, that kind of stuff transfers. And I know that was coming from her. My mom comes from a long line of like alcoholics, very like angry, sad women. My great grandmother was not a very nice woman but she was also struggling with an alcoholic husband who was cheating and all of that, those patterns, and especially the relationships with men that were, unhealthy and addicts and things like that, and have traveled through my lineage. I know that, and
100%.
And this whole line of like self-sabotaging, and so that can really be.
Yeah, like, you're talking about those stress factors.
Yeah.
So the stress that your mom, your grandmother, all of the women before you endured turns on or off certain factors that then get transferred to you in utero. So that's how this biological component is to play. But also there's that conditioning piece and that modeling piece that you may have seen as a young girl. I know I saw it a lot. One of the biggest memories that I have when I really wanted to look at my inherited patterns, look at the generational healing that I needed to do, I remember this distinct memory of being a little girl sitting at a table of all of the women in my family, and they were talking about their relationships with their husbands or their partners. And the abuse, sometimes the physical abuse, the emotional abuse, the enduring that they had to do to be in those relationships, and then to get up from that table and just to walk right back into that relationship. So that conditioning, that modeling really showed me that you endure. No matter what happens in your relationships, you
Stick
stay
it out.
make it work. And that's what I did in my marriage. It was actually my husband that was the one that came to me and finally released me. And to tell you the amount of peace I felt in that moment when he said, so when are we going to call this?
Yeah.
It was like my body
He
felt
did for you what you
peace.
could not do for yourself in the moment.
100%.
I've had a partner recently, well, my last partner did the same thing for me. It was like, we were literally crying during the breakup. He's like, we've come as far as we can go. Like, this was like in service to this moment. And like, but I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, me neither. And let me tell you, that is one I have learned very well.
The time.
The power of quitting.
Totally. All right. So we have so much more to talk about here. So first, I want you to tell us, we have a nonprofit that's happening, right? Is that true? Yeah. So this is a new project?
It is a new project.
Okay. Let's start there.
It is I feel like it's a project that has been coming together my entire life.
Okay.
So in these last 2 years, a lot has changed in my life. Moving to South Beach was one of the most pivotal moments in my life, because I think being here is therapeutic in some way. I don't know if you've experienced this, but
yes,
I feel like being near the ocean and the water and being so close to my people from the Caribbean has been such therapy.
Where was home originally?
Puerto Rico. My family's from Puerto Rico, but I'm from Brooklyn, so you call me a New York Puerto Rican. But but yeah, so the nonprofit is really my life's work. It's every single part of me coming together, especially this healing part. And so last week I put in all the paperwork to Florida, so I'm just waiting for them to approve it. And the nonprofit will focus on bringing generational healing to communities of color. So really through education, through awareness, through transformative events, making sure that my community understands the power of this and how it can really transform them into having self-agency, confidence, and building the legacy that they truly want to build.
I love that. It's kind of also like moving from these ideas of victimhood and being held back and held down, even just as women too, and in giving permission to like release some of that. It's not.
Absolutely.
I think it's so empowering.
Thank you. And there's a lot of things that need to change about the institutions that we're in and the systemic issues that we're undergoing. But my role in this is to give a little bit more of that power back to the person. And I believe that you regain your power through healing.
Yeah, that's why I started this podcast. Like, I think we were talking a little bit off camera that just, I think the lack of, when we don't know, we don't know. What we don't know, we don't know. When we know better, we do better. All those things, it's true. Like, I think giving people language, education, awareness to some of I would never have thought about generational patterns, until I started. I don't even remember where I started learning about it. So it's I think, and you're like, oh, it's up to me. It can really be up to me to start taking some responsibility, to accountability for my life and stopping that pattern. Being the one that stops. I think in a lot of ways, I also am in my family the first person to really, my mom paved the way a bit. My grandmother at the end of her life, really started to clean up and take agency and take responsibility for things. My mom started therapy. She was really the first person to do therapy. And then, I made, kind of wellness, self-development and learning about, all of our patterns and trying to heal, my life's work too. So
absolutely.
I think, it's such a beautiful mission.
Yeah. And it was kind of interesting because I sent in all the paperwork on Friday, and then I had a moment where I really had an emotional breakdown. And I think it was an emotional breakdown because it's like, wow, like life is about to change, like real intense. But it was also this emotional breakdown, and I say this to you because I'm actually very curious. I never wanted to have kids, and for a very, very long time, I grappled with this question of, well, what am I leaving behind?
What's her legacy?
I really did, because I was doing so much of this healing, and I saw that it was impacting me. But then, like, who do I leave that to, right? Who do I leave that transformation and change to? And so on Friday, I really had this emotional breakdown where I realized this is the legacy I get to leave
I have
behind.
goosebumps.
And that was really, I mean, I couldn't stop myself from feeling the emotion of it, that I finally felt like I had something. And like it wasn't the traditional thing.
Nope.
Because I'm just not the traditional person.
Girl, welcome to Worthy. We're not traditional here either. No, I honestly, I love that you are so open and saying that about not wanting kids. Is I think talk about generational patterns of roles and responsibilities. It's like I never wanted them either, from day one. So we can talk more about that. But I think it does get a little lonely, in a sense, and also just a little bit like, oh, I see why people have families and kids in the traditional way, because there's so much support and joy to be having that. And then, yes, you're leaving something behind. And that's so funny because when you were asking me about Worthy, like you were like, where did this come from? Whatever. I should have mentioned that's a big thing for me. This is a legacy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was the first moment where I realized that legacy can mean whatever you want it to mean. And it doesn't have to be the traditional idea of I'm changing, I'm healing so that I can leave behind new life.
Exactly.
New ideas, new methods
Totally.
for the people behind me.
Yes, for sure. I love that. I mean, I think it's so important to restructure some of these ideas anyway, like what is even family, right? My family has so much become, I mean, I was married as well. I know you were as well. We can get into that as too, but I feel like my friends and my supports, I mean, I still have family alive and that are supportive, like my immediate family and whatnot, but I think and like what's home, you know what I mean, without that. And Miami has been me really trying to redefine what home is. Does that resonate to you too?
100%. Well, the family factor when it comes to generational healing, I have to tell you that for quite some time, and this is something that I think is important when we talk about generational healing, there was a point where I disconnected from my family because the amount of resentment and anger I felt towards them, because I was taking so much time to heal aspects of myself, trauma, pain, endurance, that I felt like I should have never had to work through if I had a different family structure or a different family situation. And that's the component, I think, of generational healing that we don't really address, and maybe healing in general, is the amount of pain you will feel, especially directed towards the people who you perceive have harmed you the most. And I had to go through that. And for a while, I disconnected from my family to endure that, to go through that pain. But I have to tell you that this healing journey of looking at the patterns has helped me to see my parents as humans.
Oh my God.
Has finally helped me to see them as people. And our relationship now is, I would say, the strongest it has ever been. Like, I finally feel like I'm a child again to them. Wow. And when I was a kid, I took care of everything. I was hyper independent. That's what the situation called for me to be minimal and to take care of everything. And so now I feel like the role has shifted into more of a parent-child relationship where I go to my parents for advice. I ask them for support. And that's the biggest, I would say that's the biggest blessing that this generational healing and healing in general has provided to me, was the ability to see them as purely humans.
It's so fun. We have so much in common. But that was a turning point for me with learning about my own healing. And again, I wasn't necessarily studying generational patterns, but it really was, if you're thinking about like me even undoing my own patterns. I mean, some of them were mine from this lifetime and some of them weren't. Yeah. But when I could be like, wow, my mom going through a hysterectomy at the time, my, dealing with new success and levels of, their marriage between her and my dad, just struggles of just, again, relationship, losing, having to cut herself off from her mom, who was an alcoholic, and her sister, who was mentally ill and an alcoholic. And there I am being this like fucking asshole teenager and thinking everything's about me, and being so frustrated because of, wherever she was at and whatever she was able to give me and wherever she, however she was able to mother me at the time. And it was eye-opening. I had so much compassion when I started to look at them as humans. And then my dad as well, and you're just like, wow, you were just doing the best you could with whatever you had at the time.
100%. And I think that's something that has created a level of freedom in my life.
Absolutely.
Like whenever I think back at what I went through with my parents, what I went through with my family, I really feel this sense of full love for them and compassion.
And how lovely that you were able to like bring the healing into them. They were and heal your relationship.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I want to give them credit too,
Yeah.
because I feel as though my journey inspired them to go a little bit on their own, not to the same capacity, but I do believe, you know, at first when I first started coaching years and years ago, my dad was kind of like, what is this? Whatever. Nah.
Yeah.
Now he's like, oh, I watched your Instagram video.
So
Mom, show me your Instagram video. They watch my YouTube videos, and there was even a moment, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, where my dad watched one of my YouTube videos and he said to me, I'm sorry for what you went through. I didn't know that that's what it was for you. And that brought me so much, like, it was just so cathartic, you know?
Because you realize it wasn't like, and again, I don't know obviously what you were healing from exactly, and we all, there's all different levels of healing and going through trauma, going through, you know, physical abuse, whatever it is. But I think they can still acknowledge it, you know, and the fact that he made it, and maybe that wasn't your experience, you know, back then. It was like, but to have him see you and see that, and just, you know, it's not their intention sometimes either. You know, it's not like they woke up. My mom always used to say, like I woke up today and was like, how can I hurt Jessica?
Yeah.
You know,
how can I traumatize my child?
Can't wait. Let me think of all the ways. It's just like, you know, you're like, fuck, I can't take that one back, you know, and you know, nobody, they're not perfect.
No, they're not.
It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. Okay, so I want to talk about also this. So getting into like relationships a little bit. First of all, I'm really excited about this nonprofit of yours. So let us know how we can support that too once it enters the world. Talking about relationships. So you have this really cool quiz on your Instagram that people can take. So tell me about it. What is this relationship pattern quiz?
So the relationship pattern quiz actually came about from years of me working with highly independent, hyper independent, very strong women of color in their careers. So what I noticed is a lot of our inherited patterns don't just play out in one area of our lives. They play out in all areas of our lives. So for example, for me, being that person who often always self-abandoned, I self-abandoned a lot at work. I was the overachiever. I was the one that was always overworking and then saying, how come you don't see me? How come you don't pay me? How come you're not giving me a promotion? And that was exactly what was playing out in my relationships, where I would not express my needs, wants, or desires and then say, well, why am I not important to you? So what I had done for so many years was work with these women in their careers and recognize that there are certain patterns in their careers that they're playing out that are being disruptive. But then when I got a little bit more into I just want to talk to women in general about their lives and what's going on in their lives and support them in that way, I saw the exact same patterns playing out. So the relationship pattern quiz is actually not necessarily just for love. It's really how do we carry out different relationship dynamics across all areas of our lives.
Oh, interesting.
And it's really meant to give you language. It's meant to give you that starting point of self-awareness. So you take the quiz and you will either be in one of 4 categories in terms of what your relationship dynamic is, what your inherited pattern is, and then it'll give you a little bit of information about what your generational wound is attached to that as well. And again, it's just to give starter language for individuals to say, okay, I see this. And the biggest question I tell people after that is really, how does it map to your life?
Interesting. Okay, so I took the test. I'm a hyper independent.
Yes, that's actually the number 2. I mean, I've been looking at the data as women are taking the quiz, and the number 1 is worth proving, which was a shocker.
I was going to say, let's go through what the answers could be. Okay, yeah.
It was a shocker to me.
Worth proving.
Yeah, that hit me. That was like a gut punch for me because
I was just going to say, yeah.
We were just talking about this, how self-worth is really the cornerstone of everything. So there are a lot of women out there who believe that they have to prove their worth in order to have a healthy relationship, not just in love, but just in general.
Does that come from like maybe them having to strive for attention at home and
absolutely being the overachiever, you know, feeling
look at me, I've got it, and then everything's taken care of, you don't have to worry about me.
Exactly. I got the A and now my parents are going to pay me attention. So it's
earned.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's earned love, 110%. So a lot of people who are first gen, a lot of women of color, it makes sense now, would get that. And then hyper independence is number 2. And I have to
Tell
tell
us about that.
I mean, we see it. I feel like we're in this moment, and I don't know if you feel this as well, especially on Instagram. Yeah, maybe my Instagram just curates this for me. But we're in this moment of women just feeling like so frustrated with the situations that they have been in that they are basically saying, that's it, I'm going to do everything on my own. And that is not healthy. And that was me for a very long time. I would say, you know, when I was in my marriage, one of the things that I want to own is I took up way too much of the man space. I was all up in that space.
Was me.
I was all up in it.
I've never heard anybody say that. I'm like, that was me.
I was all up in the man space.
Yeah.
And I did not allow my husband to reside in the space
and
he
it's
was
divine
supposed to
masculine.
be
Yeah.
in. Yeah. And so I think for a lot of women, we have just been told to do it all, be the superwoman, take care of everything. And I think that's created a lot of women who are just like, well, if I can do it all,
why do I need you? I mean, we can have kids, you know, and all that too. I think there's something with that. And I think obviously with all of this, you know, coming out, you know, through the Me Too movements and just really feeling fed up with the way this world, society, and also different, you know, different parts of the professional world where women have been really fed up, you know, not being seen, not being heard. I think that doesn't help, but it has pushed us into this, you know, occupying the divine masculine and feminine space.
And it's exhausting.
I'm exhausted.
I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I said, the thing that exhausts me the most is having to take care of absolutely everything and then somehow go out and still look cute.
Oh my God,
it's exhausting. But I do believe that society has created women who feel like, okay, so you're not paying me enough. I'm never good enough. I'm never attractive enough. I have to work my tush off. I still have to look good for everybody else. It's like we really have come to a place where we're not just exhausted, but very fed up.
And that's creating a lot of anger and resentment too.
Yeah, it's creating a lot of women who are in this hyper independent place of, I really do want to be in partnership, or I really do want to share responsibility. I really do want to be in a healthy relationship, but I always feel like I have to be the one carrying the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of trust stuff that goes into that, I feel like, too, because it's like, I'll just do it. You know what I mean? If I know it, because then I know it'll be done. Or if I micromanage, or if is that part of it too? Kind of like,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I know that myself, I see that in friends. But it's interesting that I came up, that I was that answer in the test and the quiz, because 2 things came up for me. One was my last relationship. I was with him for 3 years. I mean, towards the end, he was literally like, I don't know what my role here is with you. Like, you won't accept any help. Now, granted, that was playing out a dynamic for me where he was much more of a fatherly figure I grew up in a house where my dad was very successful. He's very much the man of the house, and, you know, business oriented, very smart. But he also likes to teach, right? But there was ways that he would to help me, or try to push me, or try to teach me, that made me feel less than, right? That it didn't work for me, and it made me feel, what is the word? I can't even remember at this moment, but it made me feel disempowered instead of empowered.
Wow, yeah.
And my boyfriend at the time, this person I'm talking about, took on that role. But he did bring it to my attention, as other men had done in different ways, that it's like, I can't even help you. I can't even, you know, carry the trash out, or whatever it is, or carry your bags from the car, let alone help in any bigger way. And I was like, I had no idea what to say to that.
Yeah, and there's so much of a generational piece to that. I mean, I saw every single woman before me. So my father had a traumatic brain injury when I was young, and so my mom was the one who went out and worked. So what I saw in my household was a woman going out, working, bringing home the money, and my dad took care of the home. Like, he definitely stepped up in that responsibility. But I think it skewed me a little bit because then I also saw I had the opportunity to live a good majority of my life with my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother.
Oh my God.
And other very strong Latinas around me. And what I always saw was they handled everything. Like, there was, I mean, the men were barely ever around. They were taking care of kids, not even just their kids.
Yeah.
The whole community. The
Yeah.
whole community of kids. And, you know, doing absolutely everything. So my focal point for being a woman is you take care of it all. And in fact, because I was raised predominantly by my dad, because my mom was working, my dad would tell me repeatedly, you can do anything you want and you don't need anyone. And that was such a strong motto. But what he didn't realize was how much that was going to impact me growing up as almost kind of like a little mini warrior. Like, I've got it.
I don't need anybody else.
I don't need anything.
Yep. And I don't know where, I think because my family was also so, they're not controlling, but they worried a lot. There was a lot of fear. And I also had a lot growing up. So my dad worked really hard. So we were upper middle class at the time. But I wanted to earn my way in the world. And because it felt as if I was handed things very easily. And so I rebelled against that, you know, and I kind of fought back against my dad's success, actually. And I wanted to do things on my own. I don't want to be told what to do. I want to figure it out the hard way. It's like, and I'm still very much that way, because I was like, no, that's your money. Like, that's your success. Like, you know, I need to earn it on my own in order to feel worthy.
And I guess what you can see, going back to what we were talking about before, you can see the benefits
100%.
and the ends, the negatives to exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
There's a lot of benefit to you saying, like, I'm going to establish my own life. I'm going to establish my own level of financial independence. I'm going to do this for me. That's a beautiful thing. But where we need to also recognize is, how is this pattern not serving me either any longer, or in the different kinds of relationships or in the different kinds of situations I want to really make work. And that was a big one for me in terms of relationships. You know, being single for the last over 5 years now, I am so excited to get into my next relationship, to try out what I've learned about myself.
For sure.
But also to be able to honor what I want to keep and completely let go of what I don't want to have anymore.
I love that. I love that so much. That the last dating situation I was in taught me a lot of exactly, like, I feel like so much. I feel excited to go into the next thing, because I'm like, wow. And funny enough, that what that little relationship taught me was, I do like roles. I actually do like being in my divine feminine. I like being taken care of in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like, not in the same ways that I maybe had been before with the men in my life, but I do. Like, I like traditional roles a little bit. I like feeling softer. I like being, you know, the car's doors being open for me. I like, I don't know. There's just something, I like being provided for in some ways, you know, but I would never even admit that before. I would never even admit that.
100%. It's so funny that you say that, because I wouldn't either. I thought it was bad to say just like that.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was anti-feminist to say, like, I want to be
100%.
treated nicely. I mean, that's the baseline.
Literally.
But I feel that completely and I think, you know, what's very important for me is growing up in New York, I'm a hustler at heart. I'm always going to be working. I'm always going to be doing things. But I always describe it. Someone recently asked me, like, you know, how would you describe your person? And I said, well, he's going to allow me to be a baller outside the home, and just the most compassionate, loving, free-flowing, do it all for me woman when we walk through our threshold. That's what I would love to have in
Same. Calling that in, right?
Yes, 100%. And looking like Idris Elba.
Yeah. Obviously. Oh God, please. So hot. No, I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because I think I think it's just really important, and I want to make it okay, to say I want a partner. I want it to be okay to say, at the end of the day, I want to put my head on somebody, on somebody's shoulder and be held, and I want to hold. I'm also a nurturer, so I want to be able to come use that part of me, especially not having children, and I do this with my friends, but I have a lot of compassion and nurturing to give, as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I also see a lot of I'm gonna stay alone and protect my peace. And I don't believe that those are the only options that we have. And I think it is important especially, I tell people this all the time. Yes, I have been single by choice for a very long time. But I would love to be in partnership. And that's because I was single by choice for a very long time. I healed. I know what I want. I can say that I want to have someone who is going to be in their divine masculine, so I be in my divine feminine, because I know what it was like before to not be in my divine feminine because I wouldn't allow myself to be. And so it's important for me to take the experiences that I've had, digest them, which I've been doing, and then assess what I want moving forward.
Because it's all a lesson.
100%.
I mean, it's all information, So what are the other answers that could come from this quiz?
So self-abandonment is the third most common.
Okay.
Self-abandonment is...
I didn't get that one, but...
I'm surprised that wouldn't be higher on my list too, but because I feel like I abandoned myself my whole life. I mean, I was talking to you about this before we started the podcast I was well into my 30s before I finally took a step back and said, wow, I've never actually made a decision for myself.
Always considering somebody else.
110%. And, growing up in the projects, growing up in Brooklyn, growing up without having much and having parents who wanted better for you, I got the prescriptive, this is what you should do. You should go to, first off, graduate high school, because no one in my family had even done that.
Okay.
So graduate high school, graduate college, get a good job, 401k, you're set for life. And so that was the path that I believed I had to follow, and it was the only path I thought existed. But what it truly was my parents' scarcity, my parents' survival being triggered, and and essentially being put onto me. And there's nothing that they did wrong, absolutely not. But they didn't have the capacity to know that there was anything different in terms of success.
Well, and that's survival. They just wanted you to get to the next
They wanted me to get to the end goal, what they thought was the end goal. And it wasn't about happiness. It was about safety and stability.
Sure.
And so for a very long time, I made every single decision based off of that. And it's funny because coming back to my marriage, I remember my wedding day. I was sitting on the bed, and my best friend, she'd been my best friend for 26 years. She looked at me, and all of a sudden she said, if you don't want to do this, we can just leave right now. And it was the only time and the first person who saw it. And in that moment, I had a choice, and I walked down the aisle. I still stayed, and I stayed for 6 more years after that. And then after my divorce, for a year I was single, looking for another relationship to get into. And I got into one for 4 more years. And then I was like, I can't keep doing this.
It's so wild.
I just can't keep doing this to myself.
No.
And that was the moment where I said, okay, we're going to have to start choosing for ourselves.
Now, I want to pick on something that you just said, because I was telling you this, that, before we got on camera, that I think we have a lot in common. Because I was also married and then serial monogamous, and then after marriage, I got into another relationship. But you said, I went out and found another relationship. Do you believe that you were actively looking? Because I always say, I'm like, I don't know how I've ended up in so many relationships back to back to back, but something in me must have been calling that in. So it was interesting, because I would just say, I didn't mean to, but I keep ending up in these relationships.
I was actively looking to be chosen. And that's what I would say. I made relationships work because people chose me. And that's something that in the next phase of my life, I'm actively doing the choosing. But I would say that I definitely, after my divorce, I was very broken. I felt like a failure because that was the moment that the facade had started to break. So I thought that if I go to college, get the job, get married, everything is going to be fine, because that's
you really did. You thought it was going to be
I was given.
And so that was when the facade started to break. And when I started to realize, like, wait a second here, I've done everything that everyone told me to do, and my life is in shambles. At the time, I was working in a toxic workplace.
So you're saying the facade of what was sold to you.
Yeah, it started to crack. And so I think I was terrified of being alone and really looking at that. And so I was actively out and about doing my thing, waiting for someone to choose me.
Wow. Because it just felt like the easier, softer
Way
way.
easier than just looking at the reality of what I was in.
Okay. And so and then would there be another answer to the quiz? Another option from
So
self-abandonment?
the last one is peacekeeping. So that's a smaller percentage of women who are essentially keeping the peace in their relationship. So essentially downgrading themselves, kind of saying like, oh, everything is good. We're good. We don't have conflict. We don't have any problems.
I did that a little bit in my last thing too. It's almost like just not having needs kind of thing. Yeah. Or like downplaying your, not wanting to rock the boat or just,
Yeah. And the next iteration of the quiz, because I feel like we all kind of sprinkle into some of these, is to actually give a percentage of how much you weigh in. But that'll be coming down the line. I'm a researcher at heart, so I'm always thinking about how can I make this data more interesting.
No, I think that's amazing. I think it was an interesting. It wasn't the answer that I necessarily thought I was going to get, and then I was like, oh yeah, makes perfect sense. But I do like that you're like it's like a, what did you say? It's like a
just gives you
intro to language. Yeah. And I think that's so important. Again, it's why I'm doing this podcast too. So definitely guys, get on and take the test. And it's really for just like learning about yourself and how you show up in relationships across the board, you said, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So take me back a little bit. Let's go back. I want to learn a little bit more about Jasmine. So how it began, like this, like your own interest in diving deeper into your patterns and the generational patterns. Like, was there a moment? Or was it just, like you were saying, you got married, the facade broke? Was it around there, or was it?
It was definitely around love. When I was younger, my parents had me when they were 19 years old. So they were very young, and they were still in party mode. And so I was left alone a lot. I was left to fend for myself a lot. So I grew up very fast. I was going to the grocery store to get my own stuff when I was 5 or 6 years old. Like it was... I had to just live. And again, no shame, no blame on them. It's really just the situation. But because of that, I felt like I was always looking for someone to love me. And I was in long-term relationship after long-term relationship after long-term relationship, always with the first person who was like, yep, you're the one. And so I just really wanted love. And I think after my divorce, and then after another failed relationship, I felt like I was really broken. I felt so unloved and so unlovable and so
you have been
worthy.
Reaching for that, right? The whole
because
time.
that was the epitome of it. I'm a romantic at heart. This is really what I want in my life. Deep down, it's my number one goal, and everything else is secondary. But I really want to experience healthy love. And so because I wanted it and it seemed to never work out, that was the moment where I had to take a step back and stop blaming everybody else and really say to myself, the common denominator is actually me.
Yep. I always say
with love and compassion to myself, the common denominator is me. So how are we, if we want this end goal, and being that I am a researcher at heart, I had to look at the data. If we want this to happen, what's
and it's
the
not
data?
like you can go out and control somebody else and
No,
make
I
them
cannot.
act or behave.
No, I cannot. So that was what sparked all of it.
I love that. It's like almost like I think it's important to have those like almost like emotional, spiritual bottoms where you're like, where else are you looking besides the mirror, But it is true. It's like, if that isn't also just like even a moment like that, just a reminder that you got the marriage, right? You had another relationship after that. Those are successes in a lot of people's ways, right? And there are people who struggle to even find somebody or to have any types of relationship, and you're still unfulfilled, or you're still empty, I guess, maybe at the end of it. Yeah. And it just makes me realize like it really just comes from within, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I think the universe sometimes plays games with you, and it's always for your own benefit. But sometimes I laugh and I'm like, really, this again? But so simultaneous to trying to figure out okay, what are my patterns that I'm repeating in love that are holding me back from the one thing that I want? I decided, why not become an entrepreneur?
And yeah.
So, and
makes
I
sense.
think entrepreneurship triggers every one of your wounds.
Yeah.
Everything comes to the surface when you're an entrepreneur.
agree more.
Visibility trauma comes to the surface. Like, wait, now I have to show up, like actually put myself out in the world to get clients.
And if you don't work.
And money trauma comes up. Like, wait a second, I actually have to charge for this and I have to charge my value. So, you know, worthiness comes up. Like, so much is triggered when you become a solopreneur and an entrepreneur. So the universe played the biggest game on me by saying, sure, yeah, you want to work on love, but we're also going to make you want to be an entrepreneur and you're going to work on everything.
Well, it sounds like it would help. In theory, the universe is probably like, this is going to lay a great foundation for her to meet who she is.
So I'm really happy that it's the year of whatever, the fire horse or whatever it is. And this 10-year cycle.
Oh my God, it's over.
Literally, so 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago, I got divorced to the day, like almost to the day. And so this 10-year cycle that they've been talking about, I'm like, yeah, I feel like I've been through it. And now I'm just hella excited.
We're in some fire horse year and we're like blazing forward. I'm like, please, I need this.
Absolutely. So you guys, you were divorced then 10 years ago, and you said that came, like, it seemed like he was kind of giving you this gift to like move forward. He said you got into another relationship, and so now you've been consciously single for 5 years, is what you're saying?
Yeah. A little over 5 years. And I love how you say consciously single. I love that because that's exactly what it says.
Well, I think it's like, you don't seem to me like somebody who's not going to be intentional or who would not be intentional about picking their next partner at this point. It's kind of like, what's the point? You know,
110%.
Yeah.
And you know, I've gone on dates with magical humans who all teach me such great things about myself and about what I'm looking for and what I want. And so it's been an amazing, I would say, I've only really thought about dating and consciously stepped into dating within the last maybe 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
So
I hear you.
Yeah. The rest of the
I took
time,
about 10 months off. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't even know how it works, honestly, because the apps are not my thing.
I don't do them. No, I believe in like smacking into somebody, but instead now being much more discerning, and like, you know, for me is having certain boundaries around when I meet that person, you know, physical bound, you know, all of that, like a little bit more than before. But yeah, it's interesting.
It totally is. And the best piece of advice I've gotten is just do what you love, and when you love, you radiate, and someone will see that.
And I do think there's something too that I believe we attract anybody, partners, friends, work experiences from where we are vibrating at, you know. And I think you and I were talking about intuition and knowing, like, regarding like our last relationships and things. I think this was off camera, but and I remember, you know, I was married, and the divorce was it was necessary and incredibly correct, but the ending of the marriage was so painful, and I really thought, what did I do to deserve this? You know, my husband was unfaithful. It was a lot. It was sex addiction. It was gambling. And it was heavy. But I thought I was being punished by the universe, you know?
Yeah.
But when I took you know, again, when that fell apart, same thing, like I had to look in the mirror and say, like, well, I didn't deserve that. No, I didn't. I'm not responsible for his addictive patterns, but I really wanted to look at what was going on with me. And if I was really honest, is that like, well, I actually met my husband right before I had one of like one of the worst moments of my life, you know, where I was at the lowest point of my self-worth. I actually met him for the first time. We didn't get together then, but I met him and I called him in like energetically, romantically, sexually, like we met. But I didn't allow it to go any further for many reasons. But I mean, you know, had an incredibly huge physical, spiritual, emotional bottom like days later. Wow. So it's like, in reality, even though I ended up with this guy, we were best friends, you know, and I would end up marrying this person totally consciously by choice or saying yes to be engaged. We I really was not in a good place when I brought him into my life.
That makes sense.
Isn't that
When
crazy?
I look back at it, yeah.
Yeah. So I just think, and I think like that's important to know, you know, like,
100%.
I don't know. I think obviously hindsight's always 2020, but that's why being intentional, I think, is so important. And I really respect that.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's great that you say that, because the biggest thing for me now is just love yourself. Like, just love yourself. And it's great because you were talking about family before, and although, you know, my family and I, we've created a great bond and a great relationship now, and have since reconciled many of our things. But I feel like there's that chosen family that loves you so much, you know. So we do get love from so many different places.
Me too.
On our path to finding our partner, which is so special.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we were talking about that a little bit too. It was like, I think I had somebody, I don't know if it was a therapist or a coach, but it, you know, and I think again, back to this idea of like, you know, once you're divorced, I mean, that's, you know, the end of a thing that we thought was going to take us maybe through the rest of our life, you know, it kind of shifts your trajectory a little bit. And I've had to really learn to figure out where home is and what, you know, my parents are getting older. We do not have small children in our family. My sister, we lost her husband to cancer. And so it's really just the four of us again, my sister and my parents and I. But, you know, they're not going to be around forever. What does family look like? What does home look like? You know, and having to redefine that in a lot of ways and also just look around and be like, I'm safe. I'm good. Like you know, I can take care of myself. I do have wonderful friends around, and there's so much love to be seen around, you know? And
Yeah, I have a sister too, and we also do not have small children yet in our family. Although she does want to have a baby eventually, and I cannot wait to be an auntie.
yeah, being an auntie is all of my friends have children. So it's like, in fact, I have my 20-year-old niece is coming with her friend for spring break. I'm going to have them in my house for the week.
It's going to be fun.
I've had it before. I've had it my other 19-year-old and 6 of her friends in my house. And it's just the best because
it's going to be so much fun.
you get to be like, and
you get to be 16 again.
of course, I mean, or whatever. It's gonna be so fun to just, to be in that energy. But that's my favorite part about, I don't know, for not wanting to have children. I know you talk about that so openly too. I'm past the shame about a bit, and I think I'm just enjoying, you know, enjoying them and then giving them back.
Yeah, 100. That's what I always say too. Yes, I cannot wait for that moment where I get to do that.
Oh my God, it's amazing. How would you define self-worth, Dr. Jasmine?
For me, self-worth is about knowing your inherent value. So knowing the value that you bring to the world and really putting that out in the world. I think for me, self-worth and knowing my value, the one thing that I had to do, or something that I had to do that was very challenging and difficult for me, a few things, but one of them was set boundaries. So boundaries were so incredibly important. And I think the boundaries are essential when we talk about self-worth, when we talk about knowing our value, setting those boundaries. But another thing that I had to do to really be able to connect to my self-worth was forgive myself a lot. There was a moment when I was going through my healing journey where I was really sad because up until that point, I felt like I had given years of my life to people, years of my life to relationships, and I felt like I was too late. Like, you know, I was in my late 30s, and I felt like I'd almost given the best years of my life to everybody else.
Yeah.
And that was a big piece of forgiveness that I had to do, was forgive myself for everything that I did so that I could create that sense of love of myself and that sense of I am worthy. I say self-worth is just knowing who you are, knowing your value, and putting that out in the world. And however you get there, however you get to that ownership of that, you may have to set the boundaries, you may have to forgive yourself, but do the work, because I can tell you that right now, the woman sitting here, I never would have thought I would be this woman. I never would have thought that I would have this much love for me, this much self-worth. It's worth it, everything.
I thank you for saying that. I think it's important for people to hear that, like, it's really, nobody's coming to save us in that sense. Like, and it's even more fulfilling when we realize, like, I'm actually really good, because but it takes time, don't you think? It takes some time. Sometimes it takes, I don't know if you agree with this, but sometimes it takes, something not so comfortable to happen and kind of push us in that direction. But I think, why do you think a lot of people don't want to do the work?
I think there is a subset of people that don't want to do the work because it's scary. Look, when I was married, if you told me to go through the work and then eventually I would become divorced and not even be with my husband, I would have been like, well, I'm not going to do this because I was too terrified to be by myself. So I think there's a group of individuals who don't want to do the work because it is scary, and things are going to change. Relationships are going to change. Everything around you is going to change, and that change is very scary. But I also think there's a group of individuals that simply don't have the capability to do the work.
Yeah.
And I say that
like
because,
to self-reflect in a way.
yeah, I say that because, there's a lot of people out there who are struggling, they're on the hamster wheel, they're going to work, they're not making enough money, they have 2 or 3 jobs. I mean, I see this in my own communities. And then you go to them and you say, hey, maybe you need some time to self-reflect.
I know, they're like,
and they're like, exactly, like I need to feed my kids, So there's
especially the men too, right?
Those, and men, and especially with Black and brown men, they're not given the same privileges to be vulnerable and emotional. So there's a lot of systemic issues that keep us stuck, and I don't know how to fix that problem. I wish that I knew how to fix that problem.
Well, I think it's just these conversations. I don't think like it's like anything, especially when we're talking about now, in any minority community, there's a lack of education. There's always been like a lack of education in those areas. And I don't think we give language or a voice to so many of those things that we all feel, we haven't in the past. I think there's a lot more of that coming out now, but yeah, it's just like access. It's information. It sounds like you're doing it though. It sounds like it's like one thing at a time, one person at a time.
I hope so. Yeah. And I do agree that there's a lack of education around spiritual growth and the helpfulness of this. And I do think it's because a lot of people, like you said, are kind of like, well, screw you. I need to just put one
like
foot
that's
in front
too
of the other.
woo-woo too. And it's like, who's got time for that?
Well,
And
there's,
self-indulgent maybe.
Exactly. 100%. It's like, I have to take care of me and mine. And that's a big mentality. And yeah, I hope that we all are doing that, like breaking down and chipping down that wall. So I do think that there are some people that don't want to do it because they're scared. I think there are some people that can't do it. And then I think for the ones who do have the capacity to do it, so we are privileged to have this, to be able to do this.
Yeah.
We have to pass the knowledge on.
That's how I feel. In one of my spiritual communities, they're like, you can't keep it if you don't give it away.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so one of the things that I realized, and this was another reason I wanted to, really form this nonprofit, is, wow, I hang out with a lot of really conscious, wonderful people, but we all have done the work.
Yeah.
I need to go back into my community because I can't just hang around with all the people who have done the work. I need to bring this back to the people who need the work.
Absolutely. You said something earlier I wanted to circle back to, but it's like, why do you think we're so afraid to be alone? And then, hence why we kind of self-abandon to make something work. Like, I remember the feeling of being like, I should leave now, or I know this is not going to last, but I'm not going to make that first move, because it's like, what is that fear?
Because we don't love ourselves. I really think, we don't love ourselves enough. Yeah. And I think and the reason why I say that is because when you are alone with yourself and your thoughts, you have to look them in the face. You have to look at it. You have to listen to it. You have to transform it. And that comes with a lot of, I love myself enough to look at the darkness and know that I can make it through. And I did not believe that for a very long time. I believed that I was strong. I believed that I was capable, but I did not believe that I could look at the darkness and make it through. And I had to force myself to get there.
Yeah, it's almost like, I think, in hearing that, because I'm always wondering, like, what is this fear, but it is like, we think we're like not going to make it through that, like the feeling of being afraid, or the feeling of being, looking at the trauma, like, right. So whatever's holding us back, like in our minds, whether it's memories or, again, situations, traumas, like we just think that's going to kill us. in a way, right?
And it's going to kill off many relationships. And
it's true.
I think that's a big thing too. I think we always want connection. We always want that feeling of community. And your relationships are going to inevitably change. Look, I haven't gone back to my family for a holiday and God only knows how long. I don't do that anymore. And it's not because I don't love them. And sometimes I do miss, some of the old traditions that we had, but I can't do it anymore. I just simply can't. And they understand that. And so things change a lot when you go through that process. And you just have to be ready and know that the change is fine, but you will find your people. You will heal relationships. In fact, your relationships with certain people might get better.
They might get better, and they do. I mean, I've definitely gone through the loss or the shedding that comes with growth, awareness, and not even in my doing, like the universe just kind of removing people or creating space or some something happened or they take an initiative. But things definitely change, and things also definitely get better. For me, I had a similar story where, my family was, they took the ride with me, when I started to heal, and I got to have some really incredible conversations like with them about, them being human and where they were, and also, just letting them know what was going on with me then. And they were so gracious to not, I'm sure it killed them, to hear a lot of that, that I had a lot of fear and a lot of doubt. And even though they were trying to do it one way, it came up my little brain and, took this message and made it something different, than they meant to. So, but it was something I'm always grateful for is
beautiful.
Is having those relationships get stronger, because really, I think it's like if the more you can't lose being authentic, it's like you're not going to lose, and that comes with being vulnerable and stripping things away and being brave and
but our brains are not wired towards authenticity. They are wired towards connection. And so sometimes connection is familiar, and familiar is oftentimes not healthy. So when we really think about it,
that's such a good way. Let's say that again.
We're not wired for authenticity. We are wired for connection, and connection is very often about the familiar, and the familiar is very often not healthy. That is people say like just be authentic, and that goes completely against your body.
Well, that's probably why it's so hard to do the work.
Yes, and so the work is getting to a place where you can say, I am my authentic self, and that is now my default. And whether I have connections or not, I'm going to be my authentic self, and that's my default.
Oh, that really makes so much sense. Thank you for clarifying.
I just came out with that. So that's great that it's on film.
We are. Have it on film. Trademark your new slogan. I mean, but it is so true, because it's like the devil we know, right? Like it's like it feels safer to stay. Yeah, just because, I'm still coming home to somebody, there's still somebody there.
And I think going back to the generational part of that, so I realized, and this was really interesting, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-aunt, these are women who came from Puerto Rico with nothing but their husbands and their kids. They didn't have education. They didn't have money. So they didn't have the ability. They didn't have any options. They didn't have the ability to say, deuces, you're being an a-hole, I'm out.
True. They needed them for a certain reason, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that helped me break my pattern was when I realized, oh, wow, I don't even live like these women anymore. I have an education. I have money. I have support. I don't have to keep being the same way. I don't live the same life.
And therefore don't have the same needs. Yeah.
Don't have the same, exactly. So I think when it comes to, generational healing, one of the things that can be so helpful is saying, I don't live that life that they lived.
Well, that's the freedom.
That is so freeing.
It is. And we're not in that same exact situation.
No.
Thank you for showing me what I need to see from that. But it's like, it's not my story.
Yeah. And in some ways, we are still living out some aspects of it. There is still racism in this country. There is still a lot of systemic issues. We see it every day.
Very true.
But it's helpful to put it in the framework of how am I living today, and how can I live in my own self-agency today versus releasing how our family had to live before us.
That's so well said. I'm so glad that you pointed that out. I totally agree. What would you say to like somebody in their first, especially women, but like in their first, like if they're just hearing this for the first time and they're just starting to realize that their lives are, they've been kind of repeating these patterns. What's like a first like baby step they could do? Maybe it's take the quiz, or maybe,
Take the quiz for sure. It's super
um,
helpful. Gives you language, especially if you're thinking about the relationship dynamics in different
they're just
areas
not
of your life.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
They realize their life isn't fulfilled, and they're the common denominator. What's the first thing they can do?
Yeah, quiz definitely, I would say for sure. What I think is most important, and I think we talk about this a lot in every aspect of spirituality, self-awareness.
Yeah.
So self-awareness is key. So when you can step back and ask yourself, what area of life do I feel unfulfilled in? Or do I feel like I have these visions or ideas of what I really want, but for some reason I'm stuck?
Yep.
And then to ask yourself the core question of, what is it? What's essentially is it costing you in order to stay in these patterns? That can be really helpful, because when we know the cost, the emotional cost, the relational cost, it can be helpful in terms of smacking us a little bit in the face.
Sure.
And then asking yourself, where did I learn this? Where did I first see this? Where did I learn this? When people ask me, how do I know if it's generational? That's a big one. It's like, where did you learn this? Where did you see it? Where was it modeled for you? And very oftentimes it's like my story. Well, I was sitting at the dinner table and I heard these conversations, or I saw relationships play out in this way. So I think self-awareness is key, asking yourself, what's the cost of me continuing these patterns? And then really digging into, how did this start? Because once you know where it starts, you can say to yourself, okay, it started there, but it can end here.
Oh, and that's great. And it's like a true measurement of progress. I always say awareness is the first step to change, and it really is. And then kind of also like acceptance, right, of like the situation. Okay, that happened, this is what it is. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. I can make some changes. I love that. So definitely get to Dr. Jasmine's Instagram. We're going to put all that in the show notes, and take the quiz at the very least. I think getting curious too, right? It's like, get curious about yourself. It's like, it doesn't, I know it can be painful, right? We all have different situations, traumas, memories, things that are heavy and painful, but there can be light. There can be so much growth to be had from these experiences that, maybe we're not so comfortable too. So I always say, get curious. How would you, okay, so I wanted to circle back to one thing. You talked about forgiveness. And I just think, when we talk about like generational trauma or patterns, like not only defining kind of how we operate or having to do with how we operate in the world, how we show up in relationships, is there ways to forgive that lineage, and release? Because I'm very curious about the topic of forgiveness. I'm touching on it with a lot of guests, because I'm trying to learn, like, what is it that we do? How do we actually forgive, right? I kind of get what it is, but how do we actually do it? So if you're talking about generational patterns, and then even just your own, what do you say?
Honoring the gift of what you are forgiving. So, and that sounds a little funky, but for me, there always is a reason why something happens. And there always is a reason why you go through particular situations or scenarios. And I believe that there is always a positive and a negative to everything.
Okay.
And so for me, forgiveness has always been about honoring the positive and releasing the negative, and really saying to myself, I was given this as a gift to achieve whatever. So the power of strength. There were so many times in my life where I had to be the strong one, where I had to stand up, where I had to be the one that was at the forefront. And that's a gift, and that's a blessing. But there's also the negative aspects of that, the negative things that came out of being too strong and being the strong one. And so I think forgiveness is about honoring what you got from the situation, the circumstance, the person, and then just letting go of the negative, completely releasing it. Like saying like, thank you and thank you, but we're done.
We're done. Like really just choosing to like put it down, like so to speak. Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I visualized myself so many times almost with like a suitcase.
Yeah.
And I'm walking.
Well, that's what I want to know. Like, what is
in
the thing?
that? Yeah, and in that journey of walking, I'll be telling myself, okay, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. All right, we're done. And you put the suitcase down and you walk away. And it sounds so simple, and it's not.
And because I was going to say, our minds will go back and pick it up.
110%. And so every single time my mind would go back and pick something up, I would basically say, no, we left that on 14th Street.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we left that over there. But it's not an easy, I don't think forgiveness is an easy process at all.
And then maybe that's what it is. It's like a process of, it might have to be something we're doing over and over.
Yeah, but for me, it has always been thank you. And now I choose to let you go. That's always been it. Because I think there is that thank you part that is really so beautiful. There was
well, that's also taking, sorry to interrupt, it's just taking that again, like that victim mentality out. Like nothing happens to you, it's happening for you in some way.
Yeah,
there's something there for you. I don't know. And it's very empowering when you just were saying it like that.
Yeah. There was this wild idea I had one day, and I tell you, the universe plays like funny little jokes on me. But there was this idea because I was going through all of my money trauma and really trying to work on my money mindset. And I got this idea, like, let me write a thank you letter to scarcity. And I sat on the beach here in South Beach, and I wrote this long ass letter to scarcity where I thanked it for everything. Thank you so much for teaching me how to live with nothing. Because you know what? If I ever had to live with nothing, I can go back to living with nothing.
Yep.
Just thank you for the resilience. Thank you for everything. And at the end, I signed it and I said, and now we're done. And it was just a cathartic process. Now, did my scarcity mindset go away after that? No. I mean, it took me years to break that down. But it started the process. It started me changing the way I think about my life and seeing the blessing in pain.
Reframing it a bit. And I think with like anything, our mind loves to hold on to these things, it's like grooves in the mind. It's like, it's been used to thinking this one way or thinking this thought or, having this mindset about this, and it just needs to we need to like start a new groove, So repetition, I think it is really interesting. I think writing, those of you that are maybe struggling to let something go, I've always found writing
Me too,
out as an actual like exorcism of energy, getting it out, burning it, whatever, burying it.
And what you said about getting curious too, I think there's so much power in being curious.
Oh, it was so much fun after a while.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, like even after finding out about my husband and everything, I kind of separate, being able to, we stayed in that marriage and really tried to work on things for quite a bit. But I got so curious I tried to like remove myself from the situation because I knew it wasn't really about me. But getting curious, like I really wanted to learn about what was going on with him and like why we were there. And so it was like this investigation into like, how could we be here right now?
That's exactly what I call it. I say it's almost like you're the external observer of your life.
But that's like the little sweet spot because it's like very little has to do with harming me unintentionally. You know what I mean? Like I was saying, like my mom doesn't wake up and be like, how can I hurt Jessica? I don't think my husband was doing that either. Yeah. I think he was not loving himself, the right way, not enough, and looking for that validation outside.
His own demons.
100%.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, thank you. This has been so wonderful. I have two like little last questions. You can just kind of say what the first thing is on your mind. What do you consider your superpower to be?
Strength.
Oh,
Yeah, strength.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have a motto or like a favorite quote or something that you live by?
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Oh, I love that. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. It's so true. Oh my God. I was thinking about that when it came to just like everything in entrepreneurship. Like, my freaking
It is going to come from every single angle and direction. So just stay ready.
I need systems in place that help me stay ready. That's so great. This has been a beautiful conversation. I think it's going to help people. So just to recap, you are not a coach, correct? Okay. You are more like a researcher, scientist. That's so great. So are we able to know the name of your nonprofit yet, or are we holding that to the heart right now?
I will definitely release it with you all. So it's called the Institute for Generational Healing.
Oh my God, amazing. And congratulations on starting that. So if people want to learn more about that, is there a website coming?
It's coming. You can definitely follow me on Instagram, also on YouTube, because once Florida approves it, I am going to do the 100 days of generational healing. So I'm going to be releasing 100 videos all on generational healing, different generational healing modalities, how to do it, how to work through it, highlighting different people that are doing it, especially in the Miami community, because this is where we'll be starting. And that would be the best place to go to if you're interested in learning what is this and how do I actually do it. That's going to be a really fun, I'm so excited about it. A really fun effort.
Yeah, me too. So we'll put all of the details for Dr. Jasmine's Instagram and Dr. Jasmine's YouTube in the show notes. If you want to just, what is it out loud? So in case they want to.
Jasmine Escalera Coaching. So that's from when I was a coach. And my YouTube, you can also look at me there. It's Dr. Jasmine Escalera.
Thank you so much for being Unworthy. I hope you will come back. We're going to
yeah.
be talking about so many other things.
I definitely believe we will. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Worthy the Podcast. Our goal is to build a community, and we do that through people like you who listen, subscribe, and most importantly, share with someone you care about. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, as well as our YouTube channel. And if this episode resonated with you, leave a review. We want to hear from you. Thanks for being here, and remember, you've always been enough. Period. This podcast is meant to inspire and educate, but I am not a licensed therapist or medical professional. Everything shared here is based on personal experience and perspective, so take what resonates and leave the rest.